Hi, I'm Liz from Caravan Guard Insurance. Whether you're an experienced motorhomer or just starting out, taking a motorhome on an adventure can be daunting for some. With a bigger and heavier vehicle, it's very different to driving a car, particularly when pulling out, navigating roundabouts and country lanes, overtaking and pitching or parking up. In fact, each year we get lots of motorhome insurance claims for knocks, dents and accidents on site, on the road, at home, in car parks and in storage. We're here at the NEC Caravan Camping and Motorhome Show, and we're going to ask 4 motorhome experts and experienced owners for their top tips for safe driving in a motorhome. First up, we talked to Matt Sims from the Motorhome Matt podcast.
So there are 4 things, usually sometimes 6, that keep you in touch with the road, and they are your tyres. And it's really important you check these regularly before you set off. When was the last time you checked yours? I bet it was a while ago, but it's a really good habit to get into checking your tyres, especially when you get the motorhome or caravan for the first time out of storage. I'm going to show you a couple of things on a tyre that I think you should be checking. So the first thing, and probably the obvious thing to check on your tyre, is its pressure. Now there's lots of debate and discussion about this constantly. What is the best pressure that I should be running my motorhome tyre at? Well, it's actually determined by the weight that you've got on that axle. Now if you weigh the motorhome, and I'll come back to this in a moment, you'll know how much weight is on this tyre, and Michelin, which is the manufacturer of this tyre, will give you some great advice on the best and optimum pressure to run that tyre at. Now I'm going to give you a little phrase, PACT, P-A-C-T, pressure, age, A is for age. On every tyre there's a little pill with 4 numbers in it, and that will tell you when the tyre was made. So that is the week and year of manufacture. For example, it might say 1023. That'd be week 10 in 2023. Every tyre has this pill on. Check your age of your tyres. It's recommended that every tyre should be changed after 7 years or 5 years of use. So 7 years old or 5 years of use. If a tyre is white on the sidewall or cracking on the sidewall, it's probably going to get picked up on your MOT, and I'd recommend you consider changing it. And make sure you look too on the inside wall. You can't see the inside wall unless you put the wheels on the front on a full lock and get inside and have a look. If there are any bulges or any damage whatsoever, change it. T is for torque. When did you last check the torque or the tightness of your wheel nuts? I know someone that drove out of their storage site after it being parked there for months, and there was this awful knocking. Somebody had loosened all the wheels, who knows why. So it's definitely worth, before driving off, just get a wheel brace or a torque wrench and just tighten them up if they are loose. And if they are, or you're concerned, go to a tyre centre and have them check them for you. So next up, I would be checking weights. So it's really important you understand what your motorhome can weigh. What is its maximum gross weight? Now the only way to find this out is to check your vehicle plate, which is either under the bonnet or on a Ford Transit, could be in the passenger door frame. Also understand your payload. The only way to know that is to take it to a weighbridge when it's empty, and then you've got the gross weight on the plate, you know what your payload is. Fill it up with all your stuff, pants, socks, shoes, all your stuff, your surfboard, everything you're going to take, and take it to a weighbridge and get it weighed. Have them weigh the front axle and then the back axle, and compare those results with the plate on your vehicle, and just check neither of them is overweight. None of the measurements you've actually got on the weighbridge are higher, and then check both axles together, and that will give you the gross weight. And remember, if you're adding people into the motorhome, you're adding weight. The other thing to think about is water. I often get asked, should I carry water? Is it okay to fill my tank when I travel? Well, it could be, but unlike your fuel tank, it hasn't got any baffles inside it. So if you half fill it, the water is going to slosh about. It becomes what's called a dynamic load. And when you're going around a roundabout, you are going to feel that weight moving around, which is quite unnerving, and on a wet road could cause you a problem. My advice would be either brim it, if the payload allows you to do that, or just fill it to 20%. So you've got enough water to make a brew, or wash your hands and flush the toilet if you're stopping en route. And remember to check your water level when you leave a campsite. It's very easy just to pack up and go. You might be in a scenario where you've got half a tank of water, where you've got that dynamic load going on. It's worth draining it down so you've got just 20 or 25% of water left in your tank. It's also worth considering when you're loading the motorhome, spreading the load evenly over the axles and making sure you're not overloading either of those axles. If you've got a motorhome with a big garage at the back, it's very, very easy to fill that, cram it full with all that red wine from Calais, and you're going to overload the rear axle very, very quickly. Most garages will take anywhere between 120, maybe 200 kilos. It's really important you don't overload the garage and you don't overload that rear axle. So be very mindful of this and keep heavy weights low on the floor. So if you've got a motorhome with a rear lounge, it's very easy to spread the load all over the floor and not fill a real garage. Make sure you're keeping the loads low, so if anything falls over, it's not going to fall from a dizzy height and do lots of damage. And secure things. If you have to make an emergency stop or you're in an accident, be mindful of weight behind you. It's going to come forward. And so keep yourself safe while you're in the front. And my third top tip is get yourself a motorhome specific sat-nav. What do I mean? It hasn't just got a picture of one on the box, it actually got the facility to put the dimensions of your motorhome in. So the height, the width, maybe the length, but also the weight. And this will stop you going down roads with grass up the middle that are too narrow to take a motorhome, and stop you going under bridges that are too low. Really sensible addition to have, and also means you're not anywhere near your phone and breaking the law by touching your phone by using a sat-nav on your phone.
Now, previously I was a police officer, so I have seen the effects of poor driving, driver fatigue, and what can go wrong. Before you go out in your motorhome, let's make sure we're fit and able to get out there. Let's make sure your reversing camera is clear and working, and make sure your driving seat is set up properly so you can reach all your controls and your pedals. Once you've done that, let's get our engine started. Let's check our screen wash. We need to make sure we've got screen wash for our journeys and that all our lights are working. The lights, the brake lights, the indicators, and that the windscreen wipers are working too. It can be quite useful to carry some spare bulbs as well, because you just never know on your journey, a bulb could just go. So take some spares with you. So once you're happy that everything is secured in your motorhome, the cupboards are closed, your pets are secured, nothing's going to fly all over the place, you're ready to set off. What I would say is consider the weather. Travelling in bad weather can be dangerous. If you know you're going to have bad weather, it might be wise to delay your journey. Be safe at all times. If you have to drive in bad weather, make sure you use your lights, make sure you use your wipers, and obviously use your mirrors. Visibility could well be reduced in bad weather, particularly fog or heavy rain. And be mindful that on a long journey in bad weather, you are going to feel tired more quickly. You're going to be using your eyes and your senses more. The same on a night time when it's dark. You may feel more fatigued at night time. You know how long you can drive for safely. Have a limit, and if you feel you need to take a break, stop and have a break. Be safe. That could be an hour for some people. It could be 4, 5 or 6 for others. Do what feels right for you, but always be safe and find somewhere safe to pull over as well. If you're out on the road and you do feel tired, the benefit of a motorhome is you generally can pull over and find somewhere quite easy to stop. You can either find a campsite, or there are apps where you can find places that you can legally park your motorhome. And obviously I'd always advocate you find a legal and safe place to stop. If once you've stopped for the night on a campsite for a bit of rest, and you're facing some bad weather, just have a look around your pitch as well and just think, how suitable is the pitch for the weather conditions you might be facing. Once you've had your rest, get back on the road, finish your journey. So my top tips really for safe driving is just do your checks, be aware of your fatigue, and if you don't feel that your journey is going how you thought it would, just stop and start again and just be safe out there.
For most people, the motorhome is going to be the biggest vehicle that they ever drive. It's really important to be aware of not only the height and the width, but also the length. The height's important because when you're driving a car, you wouldn't notice this, but there are lots of height restrictions. And so you need to be sure that if you've got something on the roof of your motorhome, such as an air conditioning unit or satellite dome, for example, you're not going to actually drive into the canopies. If you did, it would be a bit of a disaster, not to mention terribly embarrassing. As far as the width of the vehicle is concerned, there are lots of width restrictions. So you don't want to go down a road and find yourself confronted with a width restriction and have to reverse for miles through crowded streets. And then there's the length. Some motorhomes will have an overhang at the back where perhaps the garage is. And that's really important, makes a big difference when you're manoeuvring in, for example, a car park. You can swing around and the back will go around further than you might expect it to. So a great idea is to have on the windscreen a little label, or even a big label, with the height, the width and the length of your motorhome. As I say, being aware of the vehicle is very important. Being aware of where the vehicle is equally important. And for that, you need to have nice big windows, which you've got. You need to have good mirrors, which most motorhomes have got. But of course, the one thing they don't have is a good vision to the rear. And that's where a rear view camera comes. There are all sorts of rear view cameras that you can get, but my advice is to get a good one, a good quality one. Don't skim it. Don't just get a cheap one. It's just money wasted. And the other thing is get a camera with two views. One view for when you're reversing so that you can actually see the rear of the vehicle. Not near the rear of the vehicle, but actually the rear of the vehicle. And also for when you're driving in a forward gear, a camera that will give you a view down the road. It's just like having a rear view mirror in your motorhome. Another thing that I do, especially when I'm driving on the continent, is to leave the blinds down on the windows behind the driver and the passengers. You'll be amazed. You come to a junction and you just cannot, you lean forward, you still cannot see. You look behind you and there you can see down the road. It's amazing how many times I've actually had to do that to see what traffic is coming towards me, but in a blind spot.
So if you're driving in bad weather, my first tip is if you can delay your journey, whether it's snow, whether it's strong winds. If you don't have to go out or you don't have to leave the campsite there and then if you can put it off for a day or two, absolutely do that. Second thing is make sure all your hatches and windows are closed. It's amazing how many times the wind can get under them, even if you just got them open a little bit, and it can rip them off. So make sure they're all closed properly and securely before the storm hits. And obviously make sure satellite dishes and everything else are down and shut as well. Next tip would be for if you do have to drive, remember you are in a high-sided vehicle. This is particularly true if you are going anywhere in the mountainous region. I went to Iceland last year and you're driving along, you think it's all good, you've got mountains on one side, sea on the other, suddenly this gust came out of nowhere, happened a few times, and it just makes you swerve. And on a high-sided vehicle you are so much more affected than you are in a car. You might not be used to it. Also, if you're going across any bridges, anything that's exposed, happens all the time in Europe, but also in Scotland and other places like that, make sure that you drive a lot more carefully and hold the wheel properly in your proper driving test standard, because it might move you more than you might be used to in a big vehicle. So another tip is to slow down, especially in rain or wet weather conditions. Make sure you leave more braking distance between people, but even if you're just driving along, make sure you go a little bit slower and a little bit more aware of the conditions around you, because things do happen. Even if it's not you, you're driving fine, somebody else might skid. So you've just got a little bit more time then to adjust to any changing situations. So another tip in strong winds is obviously going to get some debris, where it could be falling branches, it could be trees coming down, it could be things blowing around. If you can avoid driving down smaller lanes, you'll probably find less debris, because obviously they tend to have more trees, they tend to have more branches falling down. However, if you are on quite an exposed bit of coastline, you might find it safer to come inland a bit, even if that is on a country lane. You generally get a little bit more protection from the banks or any other works or houses around you than if you're on a very exposed coastline, so you might find that safer. And if you are travelling with any pets, make sure all the time, not just in bad weather, but make sure they're properly secured for their safety and also for yours. You don't want any distractions, you don't want them coming up and trying to get on your lap and then while you're driving. But also, if you do have to brake suddenly, make sure they've got a harness on and a collar that's attached to the harness rather than to their collar, so that they can't, if you do slam on, they don't go flying forward and damage their neck. That's for their safety.
So there you go, some great tips for driving a motorhome safely. A huge thank you to Matt, Karina, Andy and Kat, and we hope you found their tips useful and that you enjoy lots of trouble-free adventures in your motorhome. For more hints and tips, why not head on over to the Caravan Guard website. Thanks for watching.